What's your family's favorite question to ask? What's the question that just keeps popping up daily or regularly? Maybe it's what's for dinner. That's a common one in our house. Another one is who is picking up the kids today? Maybe for you middle schoolers joining us for this series, hearing this one, you're hearing, how long have you been on your phone today? Or maybe you high schoolers keep hearing, have you finished your homework? If you're in your 20s, you probably find yourself asking, hey, what do you want to do this weekend? Which is quickly followed by the next question, and how much money do you have? So if you are in a season where you hear questions from your family like, what are you going to do with your life? Which implies that you're not doing life right now and it's not quite enough. Or maybe this one's even worse. Maybe every time you're with family, they ask, so have you met someone special yet? Don't you hate that one? I mean, every family has a favorite question, but I think there's a better question to ask than any of these. And today, I'm going to share it with you. Hey, my name is Jarrod. I'm on staff at Journey, and this is week 2 of our series, My Dysfunctional Family. And we named it that because every family is dysfunctional to some extent. I mean, Matt talked about this last week. There's the ideal that we all want our family to measure up to, and then there's what's real. The gap between the ideal and the real creates a lot of tension, doesn't it? And that's natural for all of us. And it's just try to relieve that tension. I mean, the only way we know we can relieve the tension is to remove the tension by lowering the ideal, like lowering the standard down to the level of our reality. It's saying things like, well, it is what it is, and that's okay. This is how it is for everybody. Nothing wrong with this. We just want to normalize everything so that we don't feel bad about anything. And hey, everybody has trouble. Everybody gets divorced. Every kid does this when they're a teenager. We say all these things, but when Jesus came along, He didn't try to relieve the tension between ideal and real for us. Instead, He raised the bar. And then, rather than condemning us for not being able to reach the ideal, He offers us grace to meet us where we are in reality. With Jesus, the standard may be higher, but the grace also runs deeper. The expectations may be higher, but the forgiveness runs deeper. So Jesus says, don't lose sight of what's ideal in light of what's real. Live with the tension, but also live with the peace of knowing that my grace is sufficient to fill all the gaps, no matter how big they are. So today, I want to teach you the question that will help your family keep reaching for the ideal while being honest about what's real together. It's based on a principle that Jesus taught and modeled to His closest followers in a way that shaped them for the rest of their lives. These early followers of Jesus had watched God in human flesh use His position and power for their benefit. He washed their feet. He gave His life for them. This was an unprecedented way of using authority and power. So when the Apostle Paul writes to Colossian Jesus followers, teaching them how to live out the same grace and mercy in their family that Jesus has shown them, he reaches right for this example of mutual submission that Jesus set. And he writes this, wives, submit yourselves to your husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. See, Paul just painted a picture of the ideal family that practices mutual submission. It's a family where the wife puts her husband before herself, and the husband puts his wife before himself. It's a family where kids serve their parents and parents serve their kids. It's a dynamic where dads encourage their kids instead of discouraging them. So Paul says, if you want to know what a Jesus-following Christian family looks like, here you go. But that sounds too ideal, doesn't it? I mean, put my husband before me. Have you ever met him? I mean, love my wife unconditionally. Are you kidding me? Do what my parents ask? Are you serious right now? They haven't had a smart thought since 1993. Don't exasperate my kids. How about you take them on a road trip and then tell me that? But this is the goal, right? This is what Paul says every Jesus-following family should be shooting for. But none of us are hitting that. And we often just give up, lower the bar, and ignore the ideal. But when we do that, we lose something we don't want to lose. We miss the chance to keep following the example of our leader and our king. He took every bit of power and influence and resources he had, and he used them all for our benefit. He puts us before himself. He used his power to die for your sin so you didn't have to die for your sin. So what does a Jesus-following family look like? It looks like a dysfunctional family who works every day to get better at using their power, their resources, and their influence for the other people in the family. It's a family who's not ideal, but is always striving for the ideal by putting one another before themselves. Because Jesus-following families follow the example of Jesus and make mutual submission the foundation of their family. Now, the way you do this is by asking a single question that's so powerful it will change your entire family dynamic if everyone in the family will commit to it. Here's the question. You ready? What can I do to help? Regardless of where we stand in the family, doesn't matter if you're the dad or the mom or the oldest or the youngest or middle child, don't forget those middle children, you ask this question because nobody in this family is more important than anyone else. What can I do to help? Now, if that bothers you because you feel like there should be some people in the family who are more important than the others, then you really need to ask this question. And if it bothers you because your family treats some people as more important than others, everything in the family revolves around the demands of that one person, then you really need this question. Because in a Christian family, every member equally submits to all the others. That doesn't mean that we don't have unique roles and responsibilities. This doesn't mean that nobody's in charge. It simply means that everyone uses whatever authority they have for the benefit of everyone else and not for their own benefit. So I want to invite you to experiment with this. For the next 7 days, ask this question once a day. What can I do to help? Middle and high schoolers, when you wake up about noon tomorrow, I want you to walk downstairs, look to your mom and dad, maybe send them a text. What can I do to help? And they'll be so stunned, they won't know what to say, and you can go on with your day. But ask the question anyway. Husbands, before you walk out the door to work tomorrow, ask your wife, what can I do to help? Wives, when you come in from work tomorrow and you're exhausted, look at your husband and go, what can I do to help? Kids, look at your brother or sister tomorrow and go, what can I do to help? And I know what you're thinking. You don't want to do this because you're afraid of what they're going to say, and you know you don't really want to do it. And if you're honest, you don't even know that they deserve it. But I want you to do it anyway. And here's why. If you're not a follower of Jesus, this will change your family dynamics for the better. You should try it. But for those of us who follow Jesus, we don't ask this question because the people in our families deserve our service and help. We do it because of what Paul wrote in Romans. He said this, you see, at just the right time when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. When we had missed the ideal by a long shot, that's what ungodly means. And when we were as helpless as we could possibly be, that's what powerless means. At just the right time, Jesus gave all His power and resources and life for us. He submitted to us because it was best for us. He didn't say, well, let me see if I can work that in. I mean, I'm really busy, and today was a really hard day, and I don't feel like dying for your sins so you can be forgiven, so I'm tired of cleaning up all your messes. You just deal with your sin on your own. No. At just the right time, Jesus submitted Himself. He loaned us His strength, His power, and His perfection while we were still helpless. So come on. If you're a follower of Jesus, this isn't really optional for you, and it's not optional for me. Jesus' love for us compels us to love others. Mutual submission is the ideal. It should be the hallmark of our families. It should be what we're known for. And I know the real doesn't always measure up to that, but God's grace is big enough to fill in the gaps. Let's just never stop submitting to one another. Make this question, what can I do to help? Your family's favorite